This is what indecisiveness looks like in Splatoon. There's a pattern of movement that I've been noticing in players that I've been coaching, especially frontliners, which I like to call the I'm not sure shuffle. What this typically involves is somebody is going to shoot a couple of shots from like one spot, but then really quickly move someplace else, and they're just firing a whole bunch of shots like this and moving, and they're constantly going, but there's no clear goal that they're accomplishing. And that's the major problem with this. See, what's happening is that the players don't really know what they should be doing next. They haven't paused to think about what this might be. So they're just trying to do all of it at once. What do I mean by it? I don't know. They're just trying to do everything. They're trying to paint a little bit. They're trying to apply a little bit of zoning pressure. They're trying to be moving back and forth to keep themselves safe. And it seems like, you know, they're being kind of hard to hit, I guess. So it seems like they're keeping themselves relatively safe that way. But actually, I would argue that they're not. So let's break down what things they could be trying to do. Let's break down what the real priorities are in a match of Splatoon and determine whether they're accomplishing any of those things by following this movement pattern. So, I usually just look at our priorities like I look at our weapon rolls. So like defined in the What Am I Doing videos part 1. I promise the other parts are coming out. It's just taking some time. So let's talk about support. Support, your job is to paint as much as possible to get special as quickly as possible. Well, if I'm just doing this, look at what's happening to my special gauge. Not a lot. What if instead of doing that, I were to just do this? Look at how much faster that's going up. So it's not very efficient for painting purposes. If you're going to be trying to paint, then just make sure that the area around you is safe to paint, and then actually paint it. So it doesn't really fulfill that. Let's talk about combat. Well, if you're a short-range weapon like this, then if there's an opponent right over there, and I'm just doing this at them, all that's doing is saying, hey, I'm here. You'd better not push into this area, or I might be able to shoot you. You're not actually threatening them. All you're doing is maybe preventing them from moving into this area, but you're giving away your position, so you're less likely to win a fight that way. You're not hitting them. And you're also not painting so much that they couldn't push in through it. Like, this amount of paint right here, that's not necessarily stopping someone. Even if they have to paint through it, you know, there are some gaps in this. And let's say that you're doing this against something like dualies. They don't care that that paint is there. So what's more important in this kind of a situation is either to paint up so thoroughly that they cannot push you, or to maintain your stealth long enough that you can actually sneak up on them and actually be in range to hit shots. And when you start firing your shots, you don't want them to be like all over the place like this. You want your reticle to be locked on that player so that as soon as you press the fire button, the very first shot is hitting them. So with this kind of a movement pattern, you're very unlikely to have that happen. And since you're the one who's initiating the fight, you don't need to be moving yet. You need to be moving once you either miss shots or they're starting to hit shots on you. So if neither of those things are happening, there's not a reason to really disengage yet. So it's not really accomplishing any goals in terms of combat. You're not slaying, you're not skirmishing effectively that way. You're not going to be painting an awful lot. And in terms of anchoring, well, if you're getting the enemy team's attention, that's definitely not what you want to do. If all you're trying to do is protect a jump, then you want to be, you know, behind a wall as far away as possible so that the jump can come in and then you can move in and do whatever else you were going to do. So none of these goals that you have that are defined by the weapon rolls that we talk about are actually really being accomplished by this movement pattern. What you want to do to fix this movement pattern is to collect information before you do things. So you got, you know, maybe a little bit of paint here and you're starting to push up towards the enemy lines. Instead of just starting to paint like this and like try and, you know, poke and spear or whatever else you're trying to think you're doing, just get up here, pause, take a look, spend a second or two here, see what movements you see around the enemy ink. If you see someone, don't just be like, ah, they're there, because you might not be in range yet. You might not have your aim on yet. Instead, maintain your stealth. And then, once you're like, okay, I think I can go for this fight. Oh, nope, they've got friends. Never mind, bye. Then you can back away, and you haven't given away any information yet. The more information you have before you engage on something, the more likely that is to be successful. And the more set up you are for that engagement, the more likely you are to actually hit the shots you need. If you're trying to be a support, then take a second, collect information. Is it safe to paint here? Okay, I think it's safe to paint here. Now I'm going to paint here. Decide on one of those things, and then the extra second that you spent figuring out what you wanted to do will be made up for with the decisiveness with which you do that thing. Because you will get more painted by doing this than you will by spending time doing this instead of stopping and thinking for a second. Look at how much more I painted there than I did over here, taking more time. You'll also be much more likely to be successful in a fight because you're not constantly giving your position away to an enemy player. This is just a radar for the enemy team to see where you are. So try to look for the I'm not sure shuffle in your play. If you're in the lower ranks, maybe around like A rank to S rank, maybe you're low S plus and you're on a like low level competitive team, that's where I tend to see this the most. Try to see in your gameplay, am I doing this particular pattern of movement? And if so, figure out where you can be sitting that it's safe to collect information. Collect that information, make a better decision about what you want to do next, and then just go for it decisively. And you'll have a lot more success with whatever goal it is that you decide to try and accomplish at that time.